Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Star Wars Lads. It is Friday morning, I believe, when you're watching this, and we are going to be talking about the first two episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi. As you can see, we are at Star Wars Celebration in a hotel room, so bear with us with the way this whole thing looks and sounds or whatever. We're trying our best to get it out to you, but yeah, we're on the go. But it's our first time on camera together in person and not over a streaming service. So that's the benefit of this, of course. So anyway, we are going to get into Obi-Wan Kenobi, but before we do so, please hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel for Star Wars content. 2 videos a week, 3 shorts a week, 5 days a week. You'll be getting Star Wars content. This week, though, we have a ton of stuff. If you haven't seen our Thursday recap of everything that happened at Celebration, we're going to do a recap of almost every day. When there is big news to announce, we will be at the Mando panel on Saturday as well, and we're trying to get into the Bad Batch one on Sunday, so bear with us for all of that news and stick around here for all of that. We will be covering Obi-Wan Kenobi throughout the entire run of the show, as well as predictions and speculations. If you've been following us since really Bad Batch, we started doing that, and it seems to be one of our bigger hits with our audience, prediction speculations for each week episode. So that video will be coming out next week after Celebration is over, right before episode 3 of Obi-Wan Kenobi comes out. So without further ado, let's get into episode 1 and 2 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. What were your thoughts right off the bat?
It was fast-paced. There's a lot of fan service moments in there, but I don't think fan service is ever the enemy of good storytelling. I think, to me, when I think of fan service that hurts a story is like when you just throw things in there, like kind of like when Finn just grabs out the training probe. It's like, there it is in The Force Awakens. Or, there's just strange elements in... there's a lot of decisions in the sequels when they try to shoehorn in elements that just don't really fit in. I think is like when it's a little bit more. There's like the fan service of like Solo. It's like, here's how he got his name. That's just, it's like, okay, like I don't really know that. But then there's examples. There's examples in these movies that work great. Like in Solo, when he gets his gun, it's a disassembled version of like some carbine rifle or something, and that's why it's so powerful. But you also understand like, hey, it can be made into something more, and this is just simply how he got it. There's nothing really excessive about it. He just needed a weapon, and that's how he got it. So I think that's kind of how Obi-Wan Kenobi does it. Like, there are things that like you're like, if it was in a less capable hand, it would feel pretty bad. But a lot of this stuff was just really well crafted. I'd say the CGI is phenomenal. Like, I mean, we were in panels today, and we got to see a little bit of the Coruscant vibe of the prequel era, kind of transported into the more dark times, but modern CGI version of that. And I think that's got me excited, but these first 2 episodes have already shown, like, it doesn't matter if you shot that on, like, some green screen or outdoors, like Andor is. The volume is very capable of these high-level things. And we knew that in Mando, but this feels like another half step up at least.
Absolutely.
And performance-wise and choice-wise, I think I need another watch. I think this is the first show I've ever felt like my sentiments are strong. I feel good about it, but, and I'm gonna dive into it. I'm gonna say way more about it as we discuss, and I'll kind of figure the words out as I'm talking about it. But I need another watch, and you got to see this twice because you gotta see it in the actual Galaxy stage. So.
That was pretty sweet. We got to watch it in the Galaxy stage, and that was awesome. So I've watched this twice now because we just watched it again, and Leia, that's my standout. The young actress, I'm looking at her name just so I don't mess it up. Vivian Lyra Blair. She's fantastic. She steals every scene, and Obi-Wan's my favorite Star Wars character of all time. Ewan McGregor's fantastic. I think we all knew that was going to be a constant of the show. There was no way he was going to be something that didn't work, no matter where the story went or what happens. But there was a lot of rumors about Leia. I think we all kind of thought we'd see Leia at some point in some type of we see Bail, and here comes Leia standing in the background.
Right.
Now she's the main co-lead in the first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And she's fantastic. The way this actress plays her is just spitting image, honestly, of Carrie Fisher. And we see young Carrie Fisher, who was about the age of Leia, like 19 in A New Hope, and just the way this actress walks, the way she carries herself, the way she talks to people, her wit, her everything. It's Leia. Honestly, I'm very hesitant with the casting, especially with younger actors playing older versions of characters we've seen. You have to nail it, especially with Luke or Leia or Han or something like that.
Yeah.
This actress kills it. She's so good. I loved everything with her. And of course, Ewan McGregor's fantastic as well.
I think to that point, it's, well, first of all, she's not even like on par with Ewan. She's stealing every scene away from him, and he's like not a slouch at all. Like, he's obviously in a very different state of mind. His behavior is very different than the Ewan that we know, playing Obi-Wan in the prequels. Right. But we do get a little bit of like a prequel vibe in some moments. We get a little bit of the original trilogy, Alec Guinness kind of vibe coming through, and he's delivering it. I feel this already in just these first 2 episodes, the connective tissue being formed between 3 and 4 just from this 6-episode event series. But then Vivian, she just comes in and she just starts like, she just has like one-liners, and they're like philosophical, they're very childish and charming at the same time. Like, I really do see, like you said, a younger Carrie Fisher here. Yeah. Carrie obviously is more reflective of her age, and you know, that's a Leia who's a little bit more experienced with the world, right? And she wants to take risks and get a little dirty with things if she has to. This is a kid who doesn't really know anything. This is, you know, she's been protected until this point. Right. This is her first real test, and she's remarkable in how she's just analyzing things, how she's choosing things, how she's just choosing not to really think about things. Like, it's a perfect balance of kid, but the potential of what she is going to be very soon.
Yeah. Absolutely. And on top of that, too, the writing is so on point for her. Like, everything she says, you think it's exactly something Leia would say. Oh my gosh, some of her comebacks are so good. And the way when she kind of turns on Obi-Wan in one scene and she's like telling him what to do, and she just straightens her shoulders and just keeps walking, it's like, that is perfect Leia. Yeah. The writing, I think the writing in both of these episodes was really solid. Very excited that we've seen the Mandalorian format and the Book of Boba Fett format work to varying degrees of success. Right. Obviously, it's all been pretty good to great. Jon Favreau being the main writer of most of those shows, but with different director styles. I'm very excited that this show has one director and basically one writing team. A couple of occasional writers come in, but there's one person on every single script for some consistency, because there is this is our first series we've gotten in Star Wars that's been under the event series label. Yeah. And you can tell, and you mentioned the higher production value, but you can just tell there's a movie-like quality to this. There's a cohesion that you don't usually see in at least Disney Plus television. Like, even in Marvel, sometimes you get episodes that have pace, or a pace and a tone that don't really match other episodes, and we've seen that a lot in Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett especially. But this show so far is super cohesive, and obviously we're only a third of the way done.
I mean, I couldn't go to the screening because I had a schedule conflict, but I thought what was really surprising is on Disney Plus, not only did they release it early, but the recap that they do for the show was the prequel trilogy, like, all cut up, which I've never seen, like, an officially like licensed prequel recap. It was just really strange. And then the show also has like multiple scenes with just Obi-Wan's dreams and nightmares of events that he's seen, events that he's felt, and that we've obviously seen as the audience.
Right. We open on Order 66.
We open on an Order 66, which was insane. The clone troopers have never looked better. No. Never looked better. They looked they look real to me with a little bit of gloss on top of it. They could be CGI, but if we have to have CGI clones, I want them to look like this. Yeah.
Oh, that getting that perspective too, and we got it briefly in Book of Boba Fett, but just, I mean, that's something I've always wanted ever since, playing the Revenge of the Sith video game that we both love so much. And it's I've always wanted to see
Classic.
the Jedi Temple Purge actually done on film or in animation or something. But it's nice to get these little scenes. But yeah, great way to kick it off. I mean, it's definitely a
Jedi Temples never look better.
Yes,
it's never looked better. That's probably one of the weakest things of Attack of the Clones when they're walking through. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh god, this is just old blue stage, right?
Right.
And here you could see the depth of people being shot and killed and running around under bridges, mm-hmm. all this and that. It was stunning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
So we talked about Leia. We've talked a little bit about Obi-Wan. I think let's get into Obi-Wan a bit more here with the Jedi thing because, and especially in the first episode, we see an Obi-Wan who's completely closed himself off from the Force. I'm interested to see how people react to that. An Obi-Wan that is hiding away on this planet and comes across another Jedi who recognizes him, and he basically says, "Go away and hide yourself because I'm not going to help you." And it's an Obi-Wan that immediately turns down helping Leia and Bail and Breya. It's an Obi-Wan who's completely damaged, and I'm glad we got that side because I was worried we were just going to jump immediately into oh, this is where the fun begins. I'm going to go on a journey and save the day. And I'm glad we're getting that because this show really has a much darker turn to it than I kind of expected from the story they pitched. It's the story that I've always kind of wanted. Now, are we moving beyond that after 2 episodes? We might be. We might be getting into more of what I kind of felt like the whole show was going to be. But at least we got 1 episode that was Tatooine, and it was Obi-Wan living his life on Tatooine, which is the main thing I really wanted to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think the choice to really have him out of his robes, mm-hmm. just from a lot of Legends material, they just don't. They just let him be in his robes. There's even canon material in the comics and stuff where he's wearing his robes still.
Right.
Maybe that's a choice for after the events of the series.
Yeah, because I think the Jason Aaron comics take place a year before this, so...
And he's wearing his robes.
He's wearing his robes for the most part. So it's probably just slight retcon thing. Maybe there's a big event that we'll learn about later that happens right before the show.
Yeah, maybe.
It really closes him off, but...
Yeah, to your point about him being closed off from the Force, he is, but I don't think it's to the same extent as Luke in The Last Jedi. In that one, it just feels like he took a jagged, rusty knife and he was just doesn't matter, whatever this thread is holding me to the Force, it's coming off. With Ewan, it's more I'm gonna tie in a knot around it, kind of cut off the flow, and then let it wither away on its own.
Yeah. It's almost like he's trying to convince himself.
Yeah.
Where Luke, like you said, actually does close himself off from the Force, but Obi-Wan is repeating things over and over again to people, canned responses. He's trying to convince himself that it's over.
It's he has to follow through this process because if he doesn't stick to the 1, 2, 3s of it, then he'll just revert, and he can't afford to do that. That's a huge point of that. Basically, all his decisions until he finally makes the decision to go save Leia is he can't because of Luke. He can't because of the tension.
Yeah.
He can't because he's Ben, not Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
I thought writing and just the presentation, first of all, the camera angles and the movement are really nice. I know we've talked about quality already, but it really brings in these more emotional, evocative moments.
Right.
It really heightens them. What really heightened... I want to get into the Inquisitors and all that stuff later, but what I really enjoyed more than anything was just the immediacy of the Obi-Wan and Owen relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. It was good in these teases that we're getting in the trailers and stuff, sneak peeks on Good Morning America, but just seeing Owen just disregard, dislike The only thing he's willing to do is like, I'll keep your identity a secret, but everything else, it's your fault. You've ruined it. And like you trained his father. That's a huge meme already.
Yeah.
And I can it's a great performance, but there's gonna be so many memes of the Obi-Wan Ben relationship if he comes back. I don't know to what extent, especially with how the story's unfolding, how much more Owen content we'll get, but
yeah.
I want a little bit more because this was already giving me a lot.
Yeah, I know, and it's so good on Tatooine, and that it really makes you want more. And I know Ewan's talked about wanting to do more, and I think just bringing Kenobi back into it, the book as well, like there's so many things on Tatooine that still can happen here with the story that's being told. I think for the story they're going for, I'm kind of glad they picked 9 BBY, because originally I was like, I'd rather be right next to episode 3 and get, that immediate post purge like reaction from Obi-Wan, and I still want that, but I think for the story they're telling, this is a smarter timeline than it would have been back then, because then you erase so many things that you can do if you set him on a path.
Yeah.
But if this is right in the middle of his path, you can kind of go before, you can kind of go after, you can kind of mix in a bunch of different things with him.
I think the funny thing with just science fiction and fantasy in general is that our characters are always so capable, even when they fall like to their absolute depths and worse, right? When they come back, it's like they come back and that justifies everything, but that's not really how characters are, right? Because if you actually read like the biopsies of the characters throughout their ups and downs of their journey, they go through misery and all that before they get back to on top, right? And they don't necessarily ever reach back to the top there. And I really like that. Even if we can't have it in every Star Wars movie where it's like a dark, like deep, engrossing story about like how like someone's trauma or someone's just struggles, have shaped their character moving forward. At least here in this show, we're getting to see an Obi-Wan where he might not ever show just how miserable his life was, because the story can't engage with that, but we're at least getting more out of it because it's a TV show. Mm-hmm. If it was a movie, we would have gotten 15 minutes max. Here, we're going to get that over 2 to 3 episodes, I would feel like, before he really has to engage with that. And I think, even though you were talking about the timeline and stuff like that, I think it's also good to consider that when something that terrible happens to you in Order 66, a whole life-altering thing happens to you, like, yeah, it hurts when it happens, but I think sometimes the time makes it hurt more. Like, it's that everyone's like says time heals all wounds, maybe eventually, but the time that occurs after something's happened and you've had some more distance from it, it sometimes can hurt more. And I think that's what this Obi-Wan is here, because if we pick up, like, let's say 1 year after, he can't communicate with Qui-Gon, okay, that sucks, but this is really advanced training no one knew about. Understandable. Oh, like, he wants to help someone, but he can't. Well, he should be laying low. He's still pretty hot on the radars, and there's so many Inquisitors chasing around, killing Jedi. Like, smart move. But it's because it's 9 years later, it's like, he's still the only one who's dealing with the consequences, and everyone's kind of moved on. Everyone's like, yeah, whatever, we're just dealing with scraps of Jedi, and the whole Empire is being controlled and regulated. Like, yeah, only Obi-Wan feels this pain now. And because he's so miserably alone too, I think that's what's making it effective. If it was just like a year afterwards, we have a Cal Kestis running around. We have a Kanan and Ezra, all these characters. We're right in the timeline where it'll hurt him the most, but also right in the middle of the timeline where all these different things can still kind of exist, canon or legends, and Obi-Wan can have very different periods of his life for these 20 years.
No, for sure, and I agree with a lot of that sentiment. I think we're at a point where he's like, they've picked a spot where he's now accepted who he is, and he's fine with it. Yeah. So he's
hurting, but he needs to make that make that leap to what he's. The impetus is there now.
It's like we've had that motif that we've seen a lot in the trailers and now brought back into the first scene of this show, or first scene after the cold open, about the Jedi hunting themselves because their compassion's like a drug. They can't help but help people. It's part of the light side of the Force, and we see in Obi-Wan who's basically decided he's done with all that, and now he keeps getting tempted with it about coming back. It's an interesting angle to go from.
I mean, it is their drug. It's if everyone has a drug, that is what the Jedi's drug is. It is compassion, doing the right thing. And Obi-Wan's always been one of the more nobler, more righteous of Jedi.
Yeah. Let's get into the final group of characters that we haven't talked about here, which are the Inquisitors.
Yeah.
So we have mainly the three that we keep seeing in all the trailers. The fifth brother. We have Reva, who's the third sister, and we have the Grand Inquisitor. We have another Inquisitor shows up in one scene towards the end.
I believe she's the fourth sister or something.
She has one line. And so we'll get more of her later because she's in a lot of shots in the trailers. But those are mainly who we're working with. Reva, who, as we've seen in the trailers, is going to be our main Inquisitor. I think we all can kind of see a trajectory for her story coming here, especially since she's not another material. Grand Inquisitor, I think, is the hot button topic here. And I think he looks pretty darn good in 90% of this show. I think even the Tatooine stuff right at the beginning that we've seen so much of in the trailers, it's the low angles that don't flatter him.
Yeah.
But the high angles, he looks fine. Level, he looks fine. When they show a high angle with his head and you see ridges, the lines and like it looks good. The costuming is good. It's definitely something that we all jump to conclusions immediately when it doesn't look like exactly how we want, but it doesn't look perfect for sure. But the Rebels is an exaggerated
it's more than passable though. It's good,
especially in episode 2.
Yeah, it's good, and like the teeth are there. Mm-hmm. He has the yellow eyes too, and people were complaining that he had neither, but that plus the eye trails, like it's there.
He looks really good in the second episode, especially on Dayu, and because it's all darker, I think with how absolutely white he is, like he's as pale as you can possibly get. Comparing that with the sand and the bright, harsh environment of Tatooine, I don't think it does flatter the costume design. It would be hard to make anyone look that good with that lighting and that environment. So in the dark, his eyes really pop, and you see the streaks down his eyes a lot more. I thought he looked fantastic in episode 2. We do have to talk about him getting stabbed through the middle of the stomach.
Yeah, okay.
By Reva.
What?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have to assume he's not dead, otherwise they completely retcon one of the biggest,
villains and rebels.
Side canon things. Like you have the movies and then you have the TV shows right underneath it. And this is even another TV show, so you have movies, live action, animated. I highly doubt they retcon it.
Yeah.
So he's alive or something. I mean, we did see Finnick get shot in the stomach and she survives, so.
Right, but when we see him, even if it's stylized or not in Rebels, one thing I was curious, like, look, when you're translating armor from that really flexible Kenner sort of look to what he actually is in the show, I think it looks pretty great. The cape looks awesome. His shoulder guards are like a little bit bigger, but it's really his chest guard that gets to become like almost like an abdominal guard too, like chest to abdomen. And then in Rebels, it's like this high. It's barely grazing his chest at best. So if he's been stabbed, I guess like his uniform could cover it, but it's a false alarm. There's no he's like dead or seriously injured. If he is dead, I think what would be curious is I really doubt there's any space in this event series to show it, but there's a line in this, I believe it's a Star Wars comic, the main 2020 line of Star Wars, where Luke encounters a specter of the Grand Inquisitor, who's like a ghost specter with flames, and he's forced to serve Vader even after death. And then at the end of Rebels Season 1, he says there are worse things. There are worse things than death, or he fears things more than death. There are worse things to fear than death. right? So maybe he does die. If he does die and he's forced to be resurrected or cloned or something, right? I don't know, like he's forced to be like harvested alive and fixed up into the next body. Who knows? That feels like it's a stretch too far, but you've also stabbed him right in the abdomen. Like
Yeah,
that's
it's a
a
weird
big
place.
that's a big thing. It's not like, oh, his arm got nicked or
Right.
something, or he got stabbed in the leg. It's usually the killing blow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a feeling he's going to be fine and that they're going to fix him up, and that this was seen as purely just to get Reva to basically be on the run. She's going to be by herself, probably hunting Obi-Wan, while the Empire is also coming after her as well. There's going to be some type of play there, but yeah, I mean, it would be, especially because Dave Filoni's name is actually in the credits of both episodes as a special thanks, like by himself. There's nothing else around it. It's just
Right,
special thanks to
yeah.
Dave Filoni. So I highly doubt that Dave Filoni's retconned quite a few things. We all know that,
Yeah.
but I highly doubt he'd retcon his own show. So
It's too influential too. Like there's so many things in Rebels that are just being pulled into the greater canon, right?
Yeah.
It's more like you'd add more things and clarify, but you wouldn't nullify what was like the establishing part of it. But yeah, no, we'll see. Again, we're at the end of the day we are speculating. I thought Sun Kang as fifth brother is kind of memey, just as the voice is like clear out and all this, like it's more like his voice is more commanding, even if it is a little funny to hear it. That he is physically, yeah.
in the show.
Yeah, I mean, I hope like he gets kind of like a little bit more intimidating and physically more. He looks fine. I just wish he was like beefier, but it's hard to pull that off. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what this Fourth Inquisitor is really about. She's just kind of been staring and said one line.
Yeah.
Hopefully she's a fun, big character to look into.
Yeah, and Reva's good too. I mean, we don't really get much characterization for her. I'm sure there's going to be some explanation why she's so obsessed with Obi-Wan. Yeah, I think at some point we're going to see flashback. We'll see some type of explanation for who she is and why she cares so much about Obi-Wan, why she knows about Anakin, why she has all these connections. That's for our prediction speculation video, though. So
Yeah.
We'll wrap up this review right now. We both really liked these episodes. I would say I borderline loved them. I thought they were way as good as I could hope. I mean, with the Disney Plus series, we have to hope they stick the landing. That's the main thing for me,
That is really the main thing.
especially with 6-episode shows. So hopefully they do.
I mean, I want to say I love it, and I probably do. It's just I need another watch. And you've gotten the 2, so maybe it's really solidified for you. For me, it just feels like so much, so good.
Mhm.
But like I want to savor it, so I need another watch.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we'll be talking about Obi-Wan for the next 4 weeks after this. And we'll be talking about Celebration the rest of the weekend. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you haven't yet, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment below, let us know what you thought of the first 2 episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi, what you think about some of the things we talked about. Stay tuned for our predictions, speculations video at the beginning of next week. And check out all the rest of our Star Wars Celebration content. We'll be doing recaps for all of the other days when there's big news announced. And if you haven't yet, check out our Thursday recap as well. So thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.